So let's do this. And I'm doing this blog pertaining to race relations and the crisis that's going on in Flint, Michigan. I have a question for the citizens of America. Seeing how we are supposedly the biggest and the strongest and the most powerful country in the world, how is it that we have a water problem in our country? And how is it that with this water problem, the government, who we pay our taxes to, aren't the ones who are sending the most aid and trying to fix the problem? It's the citizens. And that seems to happen in every situation, that a crisis that happens in America. We pay our government taxes, and they get paid for it to keep us safe, to provide us with food and shelter, etc. But every time something bad happens, it's us who pays the price. Wounded Warriors Foundation. People go to the Army, Navy, and other branches of our defense and serve, and they're told that when you're in the Army, you're going to be taken care of once you leave the Army, etc. But it's the citizens who are paying and raising money to support our veterans. And the government, once you're a government official, once you retire or you get voted out of office or whatever, you continue to get a paycheck and you have a Secret Service man following you around for the rest of your life. How is that fair to citizens who, if you lose your job, you have to go find another job? But we as citizens never, raise hell about these situations. We just go on and like it's supposed to be that way. The Constitution says we the people. It doesn't say we the government. But as people, we always look towards the government to give us answers to our questions, our livelihoods, how we should live our lives, etc. And what I'm wondering is, when are we going to realize that most media, news coverage, etc. is propaganda, and it has an agenda, and the agenda is the same thing that they used on slavery, on the slaves back in the day, with dark-skinned slaves and light-skinned slaves to keep us apart. They're using the same tactics on the citizens of America as far as white people and black people to keep us at odds so we don't address the problems that are going on in our country and in the world today, period. And it's funny to me how we as people fall for the trap. And it's a modern form of slavery, if you think about it. And for us as human beings to evolve into a greater light, a greater person, a greater evolution of man, we can't have the 1% controlling the other 99% and telling them what's right and what's wrong. We as people have to stop bickering and pointing a finger at each other. I'm not talking about just black people. I'm talking about black people and white people. Because you think about it, we are all slaves to the corporation. And best believe, you may not want to believe this or think that it's not true, the United States is a corporation. And that's why they do the things that they do as far as going in other countries and quote-unquote sticking their nose in other countries, because it's for resources. The United States they're not aiding and abetting anyone if they don't have something to gain from it. And that's just people in general. As human beings, we are flawed in that way that most of us, we don't collectively involve ourselves with other human beings unless there's something for us to gain from it. Just like when you get married. Most women who get married or look for a mate, they're looking for someone who can quote unquote take care of them. And if they don't have this job or have this amount of money or don't look this way or that way, then they won't be bothered. And that's really not how love and interaction with other people is supposed to work. You fall in love with a person. You're not supposed to fall in love with the materialistic things that a person has, what a person's family has, or what a person can offer you. If a person is offering you genuine love, compassion, etc., that should be enough. But we live in a world where we are made to believe that it's not enough, because you want to have the house, you want to have the 2 cars, you want to have the kids, you want to have the dogs and the cat. But just think about this. Let's say you go to school to be a medical doctor. Do you realize how much debt you incur and you have to pay back once you become a doctor? And as a doctor, you are not usually creating cures for anything. All thing you're doing is treating patients. What's the difference between a doctor and an NFL quarterback? A quarterback is not paid to just manage a game and to help the team stay 8-8 for the rest of the season. No, they want to win the Super Bowl. They want to break records. So why isn't that doctors' jobs aren't to create cures for disease, etc.? So what I'm saying is that we have to come together as citizens and start forcing our government to take care of us as citizens, to treat everyone equally. So which would take away from certain people living in certain areas and other people living in areas that are not so desirable. Because what happens if people who live in the suburbs started mingling and living in the what we quote unquote call ghettos with other people? You see things differently, and you start to interact, and things become more, more prevalent to each other about the ghetto and some of the ills that goes on in the ghetto. And then you become more compassionate. Because watching TV and people showing stuff on the news, it doesn't give you compassion, because all it does then is point the finger, well, these people are living that way, or these people are living that way. And what I'm getting at is that what's happening in Flint, Michigan right now, it's just not going to end there. Pretty soon, we're going to be paying for water in our households. Not just the water bill, but the water we drink and everything else, because corporations are starting to buy water. Do you realize that in some states you can't trap and store rainwater? Now, what kind of bullshit is that? The water falls from the sky. How can you tell me there's people or corporations that have a patent or they have restrictions on you can't trap or conserve rainwater? That doesn't sound crazy to you? And especially you religious people. If it's raining from the heavens, that water is for everybody. It doesn't make any sense. So as you sit there and you watch the news and you listen to everything that's going on, and you're saying to yourself, well, it's not affecting me right now at this moment. Best believe, before it's all said and done, it will be. We must get rid of this bullshit concept that black and white people can't get along, or that we're different, because we're not. It's all propaganda. And it's up to us, the citizens, if you really want change in the world, if you really want people to be treated equal, if you really want black people to stop killing each other and this and that, and white people to stop hating black people and doing things that are not right, towards human beings. Because my thing is, How can you care more for an animal than you can care for more than another human? That's crazy. So when you watch the news and you see people like Raven Simone and Stacey Dash and other motherfuckers on TV that are black and talk shit about black people, they're there for a reason. And all it is to stir up controversy, to start the conversation, and then we all split in half, and we go back and forth about this, and who's right, who's wrong about this, and what does it do? What does it do? Keep us separate as the 1% continue to live and reap the benefits and the resources of the earth while the rest of us are starving. And you can think that you're not starving because you have a nice house and you live in a certain area and your kids are going to school, this and that. But what are your kids going to school for? To be ushered in to the mainstream society as workers. Not to be entrepreneurs, not to be creators, not to evolve as humans. No. You're being ushered in to be worker bees while the queen bees continue to be queen bees.